Okay, picture this. You're standing high up, harnessed in, looking out over this amazing view, maybe a forest, maybe a huge canyon. And then, whoosh,
Yeah.
that push off the wind, that feeling of just, flying. It's incredible. It's ziplining, right? But behind that thrill, for the people running these things, there's often a whole different reality, some serious stuff that keeps them up at night.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at, well, the real safety issues and the, frankly, escalating financial pressures in the zipline world. But then we'll look at a potential fix, an innovation that might just tackle these problems head on. We're pulling our insights mainly from a document you shared with us, listener, called What Is, What Could Be, ZipSaferTrolleys.pdf.
Right, so think of this as a two-parter. First, we'll unpack what is the current situation, the challenges right now. Then we switch to what could be the potential for change, using the facts and the figures from that document you sent. It's about understanding the problem, then seeing a possible way forward. Okay, so let's get into it. The document, it points straight away to a really surprising core issue: braking accidents. It says more than 50% of all zipline braking accidents involve these two-wheel zipline pulleys. And the reason, apparently the doc says they don't stop zipliners effectively. That's pretty blunt.
It is blunt and stark. And what's really striking is the human cost tied to that. Our source mentions an investigator, Michael Troy Richardson. He's looking into about 20 plaintiff accidents a year. Per year, and typically one fatal injury each year. It just makes you wonder, okay, what are the bigger industry numbers? What's the scale here?
Well, the document has some numbers that really make you pause. Get this. An NC insurance company back in 2022 predicted something like 15 accidents for every 100,000 zipliners annually. But then it shows their actual data from 2016, which they published later in 2020. The real number was more like 6 or 7 accidents per 100,000. Still significant, right? But here's the kicker. Over half of those were specifically braking accidents. So prediction or reality, braking is clearly the weak spot.
Mm-hmm. And you can see that reflected directly on the business side of things. The financial impact is huge. The document lays it out. Insurance premiums started around $3,500 a year back in 2009, jumped to $18,000 by 2018, and then hit $23,000 in 2021. Wow. That's a massive increase.
It really is. It shows how much the perceived risk has grown. It's a huge financial weight on these operators.
Absolutely. Directly tied to those safety stats we just talked about. The liability is enormous.
And it doesn't stop there, does it? There's this operational headache, too. The source mentions that most zipline builders using these standard two-wheel pulleys, they have to go back a few months after they install a line.
Wow.
To adjust the cable lengths because it stretches or normalizes. That sounds like a pain. And, more cost and downtime.
It's another layer of inefficiency for sure. Constant adjustments, extra site visits. It adds up.
So, okay, faced with all that, accidents, costs, maintenance hassles, you can see why the industry would be looking for something better. And this is where it gets really interesting, where the what could be part comes in. The document points to an example. Park City Mountain Resort's Zipline. Apparently, 0 braking accidents there. Why? Because they use a different system, a friction braking trolley plus a compression spring array. It proves the concept works in the real world.
Exactly. It shows it's possible. And the ZipSafer trolley, which is the focus here, builds on that idea. It's got some key features, according to the document, like 2 brakes, a primary and a secondary. Redundancy, right. Crucial. Yeah. And it's adjustable, which is really important because conditions change: temperature, wind, even the slope of the zip line itself.
Adjustable. Okay, how does that work?
Well, the adjustments compensate for those changing conditions. But here's the really neat part. The document emphasizes this. If you test it and get the setting right for, say, an 80-pound rider, so it stops them perfectly, that same setting works for someone who weighs 300 pounds.
Really? That's quite a range. So one setting covers almost everyone.
Pretty much. The same setting for 80 pounds works for 300 pounds. That's the quote. Yeah. That simplifies operations massively and boosts safety consistency.
Okay, that is impressive. So let's connect the dots back to those costs, those insurance premiums. How could this tech actually help?
Right. The bottom line, the source is pretty direct about this. It suggests friction braking trolleys could cut insurance premiums by 50%. Half.
50%. That's huge for operators struggling with those $20,000 plus bills.
It would be a game changer for many of them, yeah. It's tied directly to reducing that core risk, the braking accidents.
And how quickly could they see that kind of saving? Is it something years down the line?
Actually, potentially quite fast, relatively speaking. The document points out that ziplines tend to replace their pulleys or trolleys about every 4 years anyway, so as they cycle out the old gear, they could bring in this tech. The source suggests that 50% reduction could happen in less than 4 years.
So within a typical equipment replacement cycle, that's practical.
It makes it an achievable upgrade path, not some distant dream.
And what about that other headache? The cable stretching and having to readjust the whole line?
That pretty much goes away too, according to the source. With friction braking trolleys, you're not adjusting the cable length to control speed. Instead, you adjust the trolley itself. It becomes, let me quote, a simple 1 or 2 position or setting adjustment. Much easier, much faster.
Ah, okay. So you tweak the brake setting, not rebuild the end of the zip line. Makes sense. Less downtime, less cost again.
Exactly. It tackles both the safety and the operational efficiency side.
So zooming out now, if this technology, these friction braking trolleys with emergency brakes, became the standard, what's the big picture? What could the industry look like?
The potential impact outlined is pretty dramatic. The document suggests that if this was widespread by 2026, so quite soon, the industry could see a 50% drop in injuries overall. And remember those graphs showing accident rates climbing? This could actually reverse that trend, send it downwards. That's a fundamental safety shift.
A 50% reduction in injuries and bending the curve, that's massive. And it seems like it also opens up new kinds of ziplining experiences.
It does. That's another exciting part. Because friction braking offers so much control, you can safely design zip lines on much steeper terrain. The source gives this amazing example of Zipline on St. Martin. It sends riders down a 42-degree slope.
42 degrees, wow, that's steep.
Incredibly steep. And apparently safely. So think about the possibilities. The document talks about endless safe zipliner views, traversing safer down tall, steep slopes over vast canyons. It literally opens up new landscapes for this kind of adventure.
Pushing the boundaries of the thrill, but safely.
And that's the idea. The source sums it up neatly. Where a 2-wheel pulley can go, the ZipSafer trolley can zip safer. And it brings it back to that investigator, Michael Troy Richardson, suggesting this tech could help more zipline owners sleep better, less worry about accidents, maybe.
So wrapping this up for you, our listener, we started with that exhilarating image of ziplining, but quickly saw the shadows. Serious braking accidents, especially with older pulley types. We saw how that translates into terrifying insurance costs and even operational hassles like constantly readjusting lines. The what is was pretty challenging.
But then we saw the what could be, the shift towards friction braking trolleys like the ZipSafer, offering, better safety through redundancy and adjustability, the potential for massive insurance savings, easier operation, and even opening the door to more extreme, steeper, but still safe zipline experiences.
It's a fascinating example, isn't it? How focusing on one specific component, the trolley, the braking mechanism could ripple outwards. It could potentially improve safety records, make the business viable again for some operators, and even change the kind of adventures on offer.
It really highlights how targeted engineering, that deep dive into the mechanics, can address systemic problems in an industry. It's not just about the thrill, it's about the physics and the engineering behind making that thrill safe and sustainable.
Absolutely. So maybe a final thought to leave you with. Consider how these seemingly small technical changes, like a better braking system for fun, can reshape so much for an industry. Its safety reputation, its finances, even what it's capable of offering. Makes you wonder perhaps what other areas or industries could benefit from that kind of focused deep dive into their core mechanics. Something to think about.